Okay, we want to talk about input-output levels here for a second. There's basically two kinds of inputs that you're going to find on most mixers. There's mic level and there's line level. Mic obviously is for a microphone, which puts out a very low level signal, and then there's line level, which are for things like DJ mixers, even interfaces for iPods and things like that. A lot of people think that you can look at the connector and tell whether or not it's a line level or a mic level. If it's an XLR, then it's mic, and if it's quarter inch, then it's line. Unfortunately, that's really not true. On most of the less expensive consoles that you'll probably be using, that does run true, but be aware that as you move up the audio food chain, you can find line level signals, inputs and outputs that are on an XLR connector. And then, of course, to make it even more complicated, we have the Neutrik combo jack, which will take either a quarter inch or a XLR connector into the same socket. Okay, so we have mic level and we have line level. Unfortunately, it gets even a little more complicated than that because there's two kinds of line level. There's what we call -10 and +4. Now, that sounds like a bit of audio voodoo. We'll get into how decibels work at some point here down the line, but for right now, just understand that what that refers to as voltage. A -10 signal is about 3/4 of a volt, and a +4 signal is about 1 1/4 volts. So you can see there's a big difference between the amount of power. You want to match those inputs and outputs. Basically, you can think of it as -10 being consumer things like DVD players, CD players, things like that, where professional gear is +4. We're looking here at the back of a DBX 162 compressor. It's very important that you match those inputs and outputs up. If you plug a -10 output into a +4 input, then you're never going to hear anything because the input's not getting as big a signal as it expects. On the other hand, if you take a +4 signal and plug it into a -10 input, then you can get nothing but distortion because you're overloading it. And on a lot of gear, I mean, you have to know what your particular gear uses, and that's usually in the owner's manual, and some of them, it's hard to see here, but they actually have a switch for -10 or +4. But it's just important you match those things up and that you understand the difference between line level and mic level. Okay, so the question you may be asking yourself is, so what do I do if I've got a -10 output, then I need to get into a +4 input, or vice versa, because you do have to match them up. There's a couple of companies that make neat little things called line level shifters. ART makes one. EBTech, which is part of Morley, makes a very good one. And what these things do is just convert between -10 signals and +4 signals in either direction so that you can match your gear up. It's always good to have one of these in the gig toolbox because they can come in really handy.